Hey guys, Constance here from Cosmopolitan Cornbread. So I am getting ready to make one of Mr. Smith's favorite breads. Something I haven't made in quite a while, but he absolutely loves it. That is bacon cheddar bread. So I've got a pan of bacon here that I'm about to pop into the oven. I think this is about the easiest way to cook bacon. If you just need some cooked bacon for a recipe, throw it on a baking sheet with a rack and bake it at 400 degrees until it is nice and crispy. It doesn't curl up. It gets beautifully crispy, as I said. And you can still save the bacon drippings because they're going to be in the pan here, and you just pour it into your jar. Alright, so I have my bacon all cooked and I have it chopped up into pieces, most of it. And right now I'm going to start on the bread dough. So I've got 3 cups of unbleached bread flour, and I've got the bacon drippings right here from that pan of bacon. I'm going to add in a tablespoon of these bacon drippings. This just adds more bacony flavor to the bread. Next, I've got some yeast. This is instant yeast. I'm putting in, make sure I have the right measuring spoon here. I love these measuring spoons. I think they're cute, but they're very hard to read what that is. Yes. 2 1/4 teaspoon of yeast, which is a typical packet of yeast if you buy it by the packet. Next, I'm going to add in 1½ teaspoons of salt. And I need a tablespoon of sugar. So that's all of those. Now I'm going to grab my warm water that I have over there in the kettle. And now I'm going to add in 1 1/4 cup of warm water. Now this particular bread recipe, because it only uses about 3 cups of flour, sometimes my mixer has a hard time grabbing the dough and I end up kneading it by hand, which is fine. I don't mind doing that at all. But I do try to use my mixer when I can because it just makes life easier. Alright, now I'm going to add in about 1.5 cups or so of cheddar cheese, sharp cheddar cheese that's grated. But I'm not going to add all of it in. I'm going to save a little bit of that for later. And then I've got 8 to 10 slices of bacon, which I cooked. I chopped up most of them, and I'm adding those in right now as well. And I didn't chop them all up, although I will chop these in a little bit, but I don't need them yet. So that is all of the ingredients there. So I'm going to grab my lid, close my mixer, and I'm going to let this go with the dough hook for about 10 minutes. It's going to make a nice soft dough. But I'm going to keep an eye on it to make sure that the dough comes together, because like I said, sometimes I end up having to do this by hand. Okay, we're good. Alright, the dough is done mixing, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this out here, and I have a bowl that is, I drizzled a little bit of oil in here, a little bit of olive oil. I'm going to take my dough. I'm actually going to oil my hands a little bit to make it easier to handle this. And I'm just going to form the dough into a ball, set it in here, and I'm going to cover it and let it rise for about an hour in a warm location. So it's been about an hour, and you can see here that the bread dough has doubled in size, and how long that takes to happen will depend upon how warm your environment is. One of the ways that I like to make a nice warm location for my bread dough to rise is to turn the oven on for just a few minutes while I'm prepping my bread dough, and then it's nice and warm. And then if you have a traditional light bulb, oven bulb inside your oven, you can turn that light on and it'll keep it kind of a little bit warm in there. So that is where I will usually put my bread, but because I had just baked the bacon, my oven was still warm, and so I just set this bowl on top of the stove, and so it was nice and warm there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of flour, sprinkle it here on my counter so I have a surface that the dough won't stick to. Set that out of the way for a minute. Grab my dough bread. I'm going to turn the dough out onto the counter here. Now a lot of those air bubbles are going to fall down now, and that's okay because this is going to rise once again. So I'm going to take the dough, divide it in half. I'm going to kind of pat it out into kind of a big oval shape, real thin, and then I'm going to roll it up. And then I have a baking sheet right here that I have lined with parchment paper. I'm going to set the loaf over here, seam side down. I'm going to kind of tuck the ends underneath. Alright, and then I'm going to do the same thing with the other half, because this recipe makes 2 loaves. Pat it out, roll it up, seam side down, tuck under the ends, and I just kind of shape it a little bit to make it nice and oval shaped. So I'm going to cover this again with the tea towel, put it back over here in the oven this time because the oven has cooled down, and let it rise for a second time. And clean up my mess. Alrighty, we've got beautiful raised loaves here. And so now what I'm going to do is I've got a little bit of milk right here. I'm just going to kind of brush this on to moisten the tops of the loaves. I'm doing this very gently because I actually kind of raised these a little bit more than they necessarily maybe should have been. Alright, so now I'm going to take my chopped up bacon that I had reserved. I'm going to gently sprinkle this over the top. And same with the reserved cheese. Alright, so now these are going to go into the oven at 375 degrees for 25 to 30 minutes until they are beautifully golden. Okay, you guys, so the bread is done. Now, I think I actually let it rise a little bit more than it should have. So it did kind of sink down a little bit in the middle, but it is still amazing. I've had it do that before, and it's still a delicious bread. So I'm going to slide this over onto my rack here and let these cool. You should never really cut a loaf of bread as soon as it comes out of the oven. Even if you want your bread to be warm, that's fine. Let it be warm, but always let it rest a little bit so that it's not screaming hot, because if it's kind of like when you let meat rest. If you grill a steak and it looks amazing and then you cut into it immediately, there's all that pressure inside and all the juices just come flying out, and then you end up with a dry steak. Bread is kind of the same way. There's a lot of pressure in there, there's a lot of steam in there, and if you cut into that and you let all the steam out, your bread's gonna get dry. So you always want to allow your bread to cool down a little bit. It can still be warm, of course, but you don't want it screaming hot when you cut into it. All right, so the bread has cooled and Mr. Smith has already dug into it, and I've got a slice of it cut right here on this plate. You can get a good look at that lovely crunchy cheesy top with the bacon and all that. So you can get a printable version of this recipe on my website, where you can save the recipe on Pinterest, or you can print it out, put it in your recipe binder, however you like to save your recipes. If you are new here to my channel, I do at least 3 videos a week on homesteading, home cooking, and back to basics. I'm also a writer, and one of the places I write is on my website, cosmopolitancornbread.com, where you can find hundreds more recipes and articles and lots of other great content. So thanks for hanging out with me here in the Homestead Kitchen. I will talk to y'all next time.